Hello everyone, thank you so much for coming out this evening, and thank you for lending us your children for the past few weeks to work on this beautiful play. My name is Susie Lawrence, I'm the director of the production. We are super excited to have an audience this evening. Feel free to take as many photos, videos as you want. It is still a dress rehearsal. Things have been running really smoothly, but yeah, it's live theater, so you never know. There are 3 acts with 2 short 10-minute intermissions. If you feel like you want to get a different seat for each one, again, feel free. Thank you guys again so much for all of your time and hard work. We really could not have done it without your support. And without further ado, please enjoy Our Town. Thank you.
Welcome to Chaminade's production of Our Town.
Our show will have 3 acts with 2 short 10-minute intermissions.
Please remember to turn off all cell phones and electronic devices.
Keep in mind that we are in the early 1900s.
Also, we ask that you refrain from any flash photography or recording of the show.
Thank you for coming
And enjoy the show.
This play is called Our Town.
It was written by Thornton Wilder, produced and directed by Mrs. Susie Lawrence. In it, you will see Miss Lydia Sheehan,
Miss Ada Laurie,
Miss Elizabeth Kramer,
Mr. Holden Schroyer,
Mr. Preston Hutchins,
Mr. Alex Mattina, and many others.
The name of the town is Grover's Corners, New Hampshire, just across the Massachusetts line. Latitude 42 degrees 40 minutes, longitude 70 degrees 37 minutes. The first act shows a day in our town. The day is May 7th, 1901. The time is just before dawn. The sky is beginning to show some streaks of light over in the east there behind our mountain. The morning star always gets wonderful bright the minute before it has to go, doesn't it? Well, I'd better show you how our town lies. Up here is Main Street. Way back there is the railroad station. Tracks go that way. That way.
Oh, sorry.
Polish towns across the tracks, and some Canuck families. Congregational churches over there, across the streets of Presbyterian. Methodist and Unitarian are over there.
There.
Baptist is down in the hollow by the river. The river.
That way? Okay.
And the Catholic Church is over beyond the tracks.
Here's the town hall and post office combined. Jail's in the basement. Brian once made a speech from these very steps. And along here's a row of stores, hitching posts and horse blocks out front. The first automobile's gonna come along in about 5 years. Belonged to Baker Cartwright, our richest citizen. Lives in the big white house up over the hill. And here's the grocery store, and here's Mr. Morgan's drugstore.
Most everybody in town manages to look into those stores at least once a day. Public school's over yonder, high school's still farther over. 8:45 mornings, noon times, and 3 o'clock, so the whole town can hear the yelling and screaming coming from those schoolyards. This is our doctor's house, Doc Gibbs. This is the back door. There's some scenery for those who think they have to have scenery. This is Mrs. Gibbs' garden. Corn,
Peas,
beans,
hollyhocks,
heliotrope, and a lot of burdock.
In those days, our newspaper come out twice a week, the Grover's Corner Sentinel. And this is Editor Webb's house. And over here is Miss Webb's garden. Just like Miss Gibbs, only it's got a lot of sunflowers too. And right here's a big butternut tree.
Nice town, you know what I mean? Yes. Nobody very remarkable ever come out of it, as far as we know. The oldest tombstones in the cemetery up there say 1670 to 1680. They're Grovers, and Cartwrights, and Gibbses, and Herseys.
Same names as around here now.
Well, as I said, it's about dawn. The only lights on in town are in a cottage over by the tracks where a Polish mother's just had twins, and in the Joe Crowell house where Joe Jr. is getting up so as to deliver the paper, and in the depot where Shorty Hawkins is getting ready to flag the 5:45 for Boston.
Naturally, out in the country, lights have been on for quite some time, what with milk-ins and so on. But town people sleep late. So another day's begun. There's Doc Gibbs coming down Main Street right now, coming back from that baby case.
And there's his wife coming downstairs to make breakfast. Doc Gibbs died in 1930. The new hospital's named after him. Mrs. Gibbs died first, long time ago in fact. She went out to visit her daughter Rebecca, who married an insurance man in Canton, Ohio, and died there. Pneumonia. But her body was brought back here. She's up in the cemetery there now, and with a whole mess of Gibbses and Herseys. She was Julie Hersey before she married Doc Gibbs in the Congregational Church over there. In our town, we like to know the facts about everybody.
And here comes Miss Webb, coming downstairs to make her breakfast.
That is Doc Gibbs. Got that call at 1:30 this morning.
And there comes Joe Crowell Jr., delivering the morning Sentinel.
Morning, Doc Gibbs.
Morning, Joe.
Well, someone been sick?
Nope, just some twins born over in Polish Town.
Wow. Would you like your paper now?
Yes, I'll take it. Anything serious going on in the world since Wednesday?
Yes, sir. My teacher, Miss Foster's getting married to a fella yonder in Concord.
I declare. How do you boys feel about that?
Well, of course, it's none of our business, but we believe that if someone should start off being a teacher, they should probably stay one.
How's your knee, Joe?
Oh, it's fine, Doc. I never think about it. Only like you said. But it still tells me when it's gonna rain.
What's it telling you today? Gonna rain?
No, sir.
You sure?
Yes, sir.
Knee ever made a mistake?
No, sir.
Want to tell you something about that boy Joe Crowell there?
Joe was awfully bright. Graduated from high school here, top of his class. So we got a scholarship to Massachusetts Tech. Graduated top of his class there too. It was all wrote up in the Boston paper at the time.
Going to be a great engineer, Joe was. But then the war broke out and he died in France. All that education for nothing.
Get out, Bessie!
And there comes Howie Newsom, delivering the milk.
Morning, Doc.
Morning, Howie.
Somebody sick?
Just some twins born over to Mrs. Gorlowski's.
Twins, eh? Town's getting bigger every year.
Gonna rain, Howie?
No, fine day. That should burn through. Come on, Bessie.
Hello, Bessie. How old is she, Howie?
Oh, going on 17. Bessie's all mixed up about the route ever since the Lockhart stopped taking their quart of milk every day. She wants to stop and leave them with milk all the same. Keeps scolding me the whole trip.
Good morning, Howie.
Morning, Miss Gibbs. Doc's just coming down the street.
Oh, is he? It seems like you're late today.
Yeah, something went wrong with the separator. Don't know what 'twas.
Children, time to get up. George, Rebecca. Everything all right, Fred?
Yes, I declare. Easy as kittens.
Well, bacon will be ready in a minute. Here, sit down and drink your coffee. You'll be able to catch a few hours sleep this morning, can't you?
Mrs. Wentworth's coming at 11. I can guess what it's about, too. Her stomach ain't what it ought to be.
All told, you won't get more than 3 hours sleep. But Frank Gibbs, I don't know what's going to become of you. I do wish I could get you to go away someplace and take a rest. I think it would do you good. Wally, Emily, time to get up. I declare, you've got to speak to George. It seems like something's come over him. I can't get him to do me anything. He won't even chop me some wood.
Is he sassy to you?
Oh, no, he just whines. All he thinks about is that baseball. George, Rebecca, you'll be late for school. George!
George, look sharp.
Yes, Bob.
Don't you hear your mother calling you? I guess I'll go upstairs and get 40 winks.
Emily, you'll be late for school. Wally, you wash yourself good or I'll come up there and do it myself. Every day I go to school dressed like a sick turkey. Now, Rebecca, you always look very nice. Mama, George don't soap at me. Well, I'll come up there and slap the both of you. That's what I'll do.
We got a factory in our town, too. Hear it? It makes blankets. The Cartwrights own it, and it brings them a fortune.
Now, children, I won't have it. Breakfast is just as good as any other meal, and I won't have you gobbling like wolves. Put your book away, Wally.
Oh, Ma, I gotta know all about theater by 10 o'clock.
You know the rules as well as I do. No books at the table. I'd rather my children healthy than bright.
I'm both, Mama. You know I am. I'm the brightest girl in school for my age. I have a wonderful memory.
Eat your breakfast.
I'm bright, too. When I'm looking at my stamp collection. Well, I'll speak to your father about it when he's rested. Seems to me 25 cents a week's quite enough for a boy your age. I declare I don't know how you spend it all.
Oh, Ma, I got a lot of things to buy.
Strawberry phosphates, that's what you spend it on.
I don't see how Rebecca comes to have so much money. She has more than $1.
I've been saving it up gradual. Well, dear, I think it's good to spend some every now and then. Mama, do you know what I love most in the world? Do you? Money. Eat your breakfast.
Oh, Ma, I gotta go.
All right. You don't have to rush. One second. Congratulations. Can you remember that? Yes. All right. Pick up your feet. You look very nice.
Bye, Ma.
Oh, bye, George. Here, chick, 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 chick. Here, chick, 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 chick. No, go away, you. Here, chick, chick, chick. Where'd you come from? You don't belong to me. Well, don't be scared. No one's gonna hurt you. Good morning, Myrtle. How's your cold?
Oh, I still get that tickly feeling in the back of my throat. I told Charles I don't know if I'd go to choir. Wouldn't be any use anyways.
Well, have you tried singing over your voice?
Well, yes, I've tried that, but I can't seem to do it and keep on key. Well, I was resting. I thought I'd string some beans.
Oh, well, let me help you. The beans have been good this year.
Yes, of course. The children say they hate them, but I notice how they get them down all winter.
Myrtle, I've got to tell you something because if I don't tell somebody, I think I'll burst.
Why, Julia Gibbs.
Here, give me some of those beans. Myrtle, did one of those secondhand furniture men from Boston come to visit you last Friday?
No.
Well, he called on me. At first, I thought he was a patient waiting to see Dr. Gibbs, and he wormed his way into my parlor, and Myrtle Webb, he offered me $350 for Grandmother Wentworth's highboy as I'm sitting here.
Why, Julia Gibbs.
Oh, why, he did, the whole thing. Why, it was so big I didn't know where to put it, and I almost gave it to Cousin Hester Wilcox.
Well, you're gonna take it, aren't you?
No, I don't know.
You don't know. $350? What's come over you?
Well, if I could get the doctor to take the money and go someplace on a real trip, oh, I'd sell it like that. You know, Myrtle, it's been the dream of my life to see Paris, France. Oh, I don't know. It sounds crazy, I suppose, but for years I've been promising myself if we ever got the chance.
Well, what does the doctor feel about it?
Well, I did beat about the bush a little and told him if I ever got a legacy, that's the way I put it, I'd make him take me someplace.
Well, what did he say?
Well, you know how he is. I haven't heard a serious word out of him since I've known him. No, he said, it might make him discontented with Grover's Corners to go traipsing about Europe. Every 2 years he makes a trip to the battlefields of the Civil War, and that's enough treat for anybody, he says.
Well, Mr. Webb just admires the way that Dr. Gibbs knows everything about the Civil War. Mr. Webb's a good mind to give up Napoleon and move over to the Civil War, but Dr. Gibbs, being one of the greatest experts alive, just makes him despair.
Well, it's a fact. Dr. Gibbs is never so happy as when he's at Antietam or Gettysburg. The times I've walked over those hills of Myrtle, pacing it all out, stopping at every bush like we were gonna buy it.
Well, if that second-man hand's really serious about buying it, then you sell it, Julia, and then you'll get to see Paris, France. You know, that's how I got to see the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh, I'm sorry I mentioned it. It only seems to me that once in your life, you ought to see a country where they don't talk in English and don't even want to.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. Now, we're going to skip ahead a few hours. But first, we want a little more information about the town, a scientific account, you might say. So, I've asked Professor Willard of our state university to come and sketch in a few details of our past history. Is Professor Willard here?
Introduce Professor Willard of our state university. A few brief notes, Professor. Unfortunately, our time is limited, Professor.
Grover's Corners. Let me see. Grover's Corners lies on the old Pleistocene granite of the Appalachian Range. I may say it's some of the oldest land in the world. We're very proud of that. A shelf of Devonian basalt crosses in with vestiges of Mesozoic shale and some sandstone outcroppings, but that's all more recent. 200, 300 million years old. Some highly interesting fossils have been found. I may say unique fossils, 2 miles out of town in Silas Peckham's cow pastures. They can be seen at the museum in our university at any time. Well, that is at any reasonable time. Shall I read some of Professor Gruber's notes?
Afraid we won't have time for that, Professor. We might have a few words on the history of man here.
Yes, anthropological data, early Amerindian stock, Catahatchee tribes. No evidence before the 10th century of this era, now entirely disappeared. Possible traces in 3 families. Migration towards the end of the English brachiocephalic blue-eyed stock. Since then, some Slav
And the population, Professor Willard.
Within the town limits, 2,640.
Just a moment, Professor. The twins.
Yes, indeed. The population at the moment is 2,642. The postal district brings in about 507 more, bringing it to a total of 3,149. Mortality and birth rates constant. By McPherson's gauge, 6.032.
Thank you very much, Professor. We're all very much obliged, I'm sure.
Of course. The door's just right over there, Professor. Thank you again.
Not at all, sir. Not at all.
Now for the political and social reports. Editor Webb. Oh, Mr. Webb.
He'll be here in a minute. He just cut his hand while he was eating an apple.
Thank you, Mrs. Webb.
Charles, everybody's waiting.
Mr. Webb is editor and publisher of the
Grover's Corners
Sentinel.
That's our local paper, you know.
Well, I don't have to tell you that we're run here by a board of selectmen. All males vote at the age of 21. Women vote indirect. We're lower middle class, sprinkling of professional men, 10% illiterate laborers.
Hey there.
Politically, we're 86% Republican, 6% Democrat, 4% Socialist, rest indifferent. Religiously, we're 85% Protestant, 12% Catholic, rest indifferent.
Have any comments, Mr. Webb?
Very ordinary town, if you ask me. A little bit better behaved than most. Probably a lot duller. Come to think of it, yes, a little bit duller. But come to think of it, our young people here like it well enough. 90% of them graduating from high school settle down right here to live, even after they've been away to college.
Now, is there anyone in the audience who would like to ask Editor Webb a question about the town?
Is there much drinking in Grover's Corners?
Well, ma'am, I don't know what you would call much. Saturday nights, the farmhands meet down in our greenhouse stable and holler some. We've got 1 or 2 town drunks, but they always have our mimosas every time an evangelist comes to town. No, ma'am, I'd say liquor ain't a regular thing in the home here, except in the medicine chest, like for a snake bite, you know. Always was.
Is there no one in town aware of?
Come forward, will you, where we can all hear you?
Is there no one in town aware of the social injustice and industrial inequality?
Oh, yes, something terrible. Everybody is. Seems like they spend most of the time talking about who's rich and who's poor.
Then why don't we do something about it?
Well, I don't know. I guess we're all searching like everybody else to find the way that the diligent and sensible can rise to the top, and the lazy and quarrelsome can sink to the bottom. But it ain't easy to find. Meanwhile, we do all we can to help those who can't help themselves, and those that can, we leave alone. Are there any other questions?
Oh, Mr. Webb, is there any culture of love or beauty in Grover's Corners?
Well, ma'am, there ain't much. Not in the sense you mean. Come to think of it, there's some girls that play the piano at the high school commencement, but they ain't very happy about it. No, ma'am, there isn't much culture, but maybe this is the place to tell you that we got a lot of other pleasures of a kind here. We like the sun coming up over the mountain in the morning, and we notice a good deal about the birds. We pay a lot of attention to them, and we watch the change of the seasons. Yes, everybody knows about them, but those other things, you're right, ma'am, there ain't much. Robinson Crusoe and the Bible, and Handel's Largo, we all know that one, and Whistler's Mother. Those are just about as far as we go.
Ah, so I thought. Thank you, Mr. Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Webb.
Thank you.
Now, we're going to head back to the town. It's early afternoon. All 2,642 have had their dinners and all the dishes have been washed. There's an early afternoon calm in our town, a humming and a buzzing coming from the school buildings. Doc Gibbs is in his office, tapping people and making them say, and Mr. Webb is over there cutting his lawn. 1 man in 10 thinks it's a privilege to push his own lawnmower. No, sir, it's later than I thought. Here come the children home from school already.
Oh my goodness. I can't, Louise. I've got to go home and help my mother. I promised.
Oh, excuse me, Mrs. Forrest.
Go out and play in the fields, little boy. You got no business playing baseball on Main Street.
Awfully sorry, Mrs. Forrest. Hello, Emily.
Hello.
You made a fine speech in class.
Well, I was really ready to make a speech about the Monroe Doctrine, but at the last minute, Miss Corcoran made me talk about the Louisiana Purchase instead. I worked an awful long time on both of them.
Gee, it's funny, Emily. From my window up there, I can see your head knights doing homework in your room.
Why? Can you?
Yeah, you do stick to it, Emily. I don't know how you sit still that long. I guess you do like school.
I just figure it's something you have to go through.
Yeah,
I don't mind it, really. It passes the time.
yeah. Well, what do you say, Emily? Maybe we can work out a telegraph system from your window to mine, and you can give me a hint or two on some of those algebra problems? Oh, I don't mean the answers, Emily. Of course not. Just some little hint.
Well, I think hints are allowed. So, if you get stuck, George, you just whistle at me, and I'll give you some hints.
Emily, you're just naturally bright, I guess.
I just figure it's the way a person's born.
Yeah, but you see, I want to be a farmer. And my Uncle Luke says whenever I'm ready, I can just come down and work on his farm for him. And if I'm any good, I can just gradually have it.
You mean the house and everything?
Yeah! Thanks for the talk, Emily. I better get back to the baseball field. Oh, good afternoon, Mrs. Webb.
Good afternoon, George.
So long, Emily.
So long, George.
Emily, come and help me string these beans. George Gibbs let himself have a real conversation, didn't he? Why, he's growing up. How old must he be?
I don't know.
Let's see, he must be at least 16.
Mama, I made a speech in class today, and I was very good.
You must recite it for your father at supper. What was it about?
The Louisiana Purchase. It was like silk off a spool. I'm going to make speeches all of my life. Mama, are these big enough?
Try and get them a little bigger if you can.
Mama, will you answer me a question? Serious?
Seriously, dear, not serious.
Seriously, will you?
Of course I will.
Mama, am I good looking?
Yes, of course you are. All of my children have got good features. Well, I'd be ashamed if they hadn't.
No, Mama, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, am I pretty?
I already told you yes, you have a nice, young, pretty face. I've never heard of such foolishness.
Oh, Mama, you never tell us the truth about anything.
I am telling you the truth.
Mama, were you pretty?
Yes, I was, if I do say it. I was the prettiest girl in town, next to that Mamie Cartwright.
But, Mama, You've got to say something about me. Am I pretty enough to get anybody, to get people interested in me?
Now, Emily, stop it. You make me tired. You're pretty enough for all normal purposes.
Ugh.
Now, come along and bring that bull with you.
Oh, Mama, you're no help at all.
Thank you, Mrs. Webb, and thank you, Emily. I'm afraid we're gonna have to interrupt again here. There's a few more things we want to explore about the town. I think now's a good time to tell you that the Cartwright interests have just begun building a new bank in Grover's Corners. Had to go to Vermont for the marble, sorry to say. But they asked a friend of mine what they should put in the cornerstone to be dug up 1,000 years from now.
Of course, they're putting in a copy of the New York Times and a copy of Mr. Webb's Sentinel. We're kind of interested in this because some scientific fellows have found a way of painting a silicon glue over all the reading matter that'll make it last 1,000, 2,000 years. We're putting in a Bible and the Constitution of the United States and a copy of William Shakespeare's plays. What do you say, folks? What do you say? You know, Babylon once had 2 million people in it, and yet all we know about them is the names of the kings and some copies of wheat contracts and the contracts for the sale of slaves. Yet every night, all those families would sit down for supper. And father would come home from work, and smoke would rise up the chimney, same as here.
Even in Greece and Rome, all we know about the real life of people is what we can piece together out of the joking poems and comedies written for the theater back then. Well, that's why I'm having a copy of this play put in the cornerstone, so that people will know a few facts about us.
More than the Tree of Versailles and the Limburg flight. See what I mean? So, people 1,000 years from now, this is the way we were in the provinces north of New York at the beginning of the 20th century. This is the way we were in our growing up.
In our marrying and in our living.
And in our dying.
Gone by. It's evening. You can hear choir practice going on in the Congregational Church. The children are at home doing their schoolwork. The day's running down like a tired clock.
Now, look here, everybody. Music comes into the world to give pleasure, right?
Fellowship.
for James Travers present, right? Now we're going to do Art Thou Weary, Art Thou Languid. It is a question, ladies and gentlemen. Make it talk.
Down a minute.
Yes, Pop.
Make yourself comfortable, George. I'll only keep you a minute. George, how old are you?
I am 16, almost 17.
And what do you want to do after school is over?
Well, why, you know, Pa. I want to be a farmer on Uncle Luke's farm.
And you'll be willing, will you, to get up early, to milk and feed the stock? And you'll be able to hoe and hay all day?
Well, sure I will. What do you mean, Pa?
Well, George, while I was in my office today, I heard quite a funny sound. And what do you think it was? It was your mother chopping wood. There you see your mother getting up early, cooking meals all day long, washing and ironing, and still she has to go out in the backyard and chop wood. I suppose she just got tired of asking you. She just gave up and decided it was easier to do it herself. And you eat her meals and put on the clothes she keeps nice for you, and you run off and play baseball. Like she's some hired girl we keep around but don't like very much. Well, I knew all I had to do was bring your attention to it. Here's a handkerchief, son. George, I'll be raising your spending money 25 cents a week. Not for chopping wood for your mother, because that's a present you give her, but because you're getting older, and I imagine there are lots of things you must find to do with it.
Thanks, Pa.
Let's see, tomorrow's payday. You can count on it. Probably Rebecca feels she ought to have some more too. I wonder what could have happened to your mother. Choir practice never ran this long.
It's only 8:30, Pa.
I don't see why your mother's in that old choir anyway. She's got no more voice than an old crow. Chasing around the streets at this hour of the night. Suppose you should retire, huh, son?
Yes, Pa.
Choir practice, wasn't it? Myrtle Webb, look at that moon. Potato weather for sure.
Naturally, I didn't want to say a word about it in front of those others. But now we're alone. Really, it's the worst scandal that ever was in this town.
What?
Well, Simon Stimson.
Now, Llewellyn.
But Julia to have the organist of a church drink and drunk year after year. You know he was drunk tonight.
Well, now, Llewellyn, we all know about Mr. Stimson, and we all know about the troubles he's been through, and Dr. Ferguson knows too, and if Dr. Ferguson keeps him on there in his job, well, the only thing we can do is just not to notice it.
Not to notice it, but it's getting worse.
Oh, no, it isn't, Llewellyn. It's getting better. I've been in that choir twice as long as you have, and it doesn't happen nearly as often. My, I hate to go to bed on a night like this. Well, I'd better be getting home. The children will be up till hours. Good night, Llewellyn.
Good night.
Can you get home safe, Llewellyn?
Oh, it's as bright as day. I can see Mr. Soames scowling at me through the window now. You'd think we've been to a dance the way menfolk carry on.
Good night.
Good night.
Well, we had a real nice time.
You're late enough.
Frank, we ain't any later than usual.
And you stopping at the corner to gossip with a lot of hens?
Frank, don't be grouchy. Come out and smell the heliotrope in the moonlight with me. Isn't that wonderful? What did you do while I was away?
Nothing, bread as usual. What were you and the girls gossiping about?
Well, believe me, Frank, there was something to talk about.
Simon Stimson, far gone, isn't he?
The worst I've ever seen him. Oh, how will that end, Frank? Hey, Dr. Ferguson can't forgive him forever.
Well, I guess I do know more about Simon Stimson's affairs than anybody else in this town. Some people aren't made for small town life. There's nothing we can do but just leave it alone. Come, get in.
No, not yet. Frank, I'm worried about you.
What are you worried about?
Well, Frank, I think it's my duty to make sure you get a real rest and change. And if I get that legacy, well, I'm going to see to it.
Now, Julia, there's no sense in going over that again.
Frank, you're just being unreasonable.
Come on, Julia. First thing you'll know, you'll catch a cold. I gave George a piece of my mind tonight. I reckon you'll have your wood chopped anyway. No, come, get in.
There's always so many things to pick up, seems like. You know, Frank, Mrs. Fairchild always locks her front door every night. Well, all those people up that part of town do.
They're all getting citified. That's the trouble with them. They ain't got nothing fit to burgle, and everybody knows it.
Get out, Rebecca. There's only room for one at this window. You're always spoiling everything.
Well, let me look just a minute.
Use your own window.
I did, but there's no moon there. George, do you know what I think? Do you? I think the moon's getting near, and there'll be a big explosion.
Rebecca, you don't know anything. If the moon were getting near, then the people that look at telescopes all night would see it and tell all about it. And it'd be in all the newspapers.
George, is the moon shining on South America, Canada, and half the whole world?
Well, probably it is.
9:30. Most of the lights are out. There's Constable Warren checking a few doors on Main Street. And here comes Editor Webb after putting his newspaper to bed.
Hey, good evening, Bill.
Good evening, Mr. Webb.
Quite a moon.
Yep.
All quiet tonight?
Well, Simon Stimson is rolling around a little, and I just saw his wife out on the hunt for him, so I decided to look the other way. Actually, here he is right now.
Good evening, Simon. Town seems to have settled down pretty well for the night. Yes, good evening. Most of the town seems to have settled down. I guess we ought to do the same. Can I walk along a ways with you? Good night.
I don't really know how that's going to end, Mr. Webb.
He's seen a peck of trouble. One thing after another. Oh, Bill, if you see my boy smoking cigarettes, just give him a word, will you? Thanks a lot of you, Bill.
I don't think your boy smokes no cigarettes. Leastways, not more than 2 or 3 a year.
I hope not. Good night, Bill. Who's that up there? Is that you, Myrtle?
No, it's me, Papa.
Why aren't you in bed?
I don't know. I just can't sleep yet. The moonlight is so wonderful. And the smell of Mrs. Gibbs's heliotrope. Smell it?
Yes. Having any troubles on your mind, have you, Emily?
Troubles, Papa? No.
Well, enjoy yourself, but don't let your mother catch you. Good night.
Good night, Papa. I never told you about that letter Jane Crofit got from her minister when she was sick. He wrote Jane a letter, and on the envelope, the address was like this. It said, Jane Crofit, the Crofit Farm, Grover's Corners, Sutton County, New Hampshire, United States of America.
What's funny about that?
But listen, it's not finished. The United States of America, continent of North America, the Western Hemisphere, the Earth, the solar system, the universe, the mind of God. That's what it said on the envelope.
What do you know?
And the postman brought it just the same.
Wow, what do you know?
That's the end of the first act, friends.
You can go and smoke now, those that smoke. Have gone by. Yes, the sun's come up over 1,000 times. Summers and winters have cracked the mountains a little bit more, and the rains have washed away some of the dirt. Some babies that weren't even born yet have already begun talking regular sentences.
And a number of people who thought themselves right young and spry have noticed that they can't quite bound up a flight of stairs like they used to, without their heart fluttering a little. All that can happen in 1,000 days.
Nature's been pushing and contriving in other ways too. A bunch of young people jumped up and got married. The mountain got bit away a few fractions of an inch. Millions of gallons of water rushed by the mill. And here and there, a new home was set up under a roof.
Most everybody in the world gets married. You know what I mean? In our town, there aren't hardly any exceptions. Almost everybody in the world climbs into their graves married. The first act is called Daily Life. This act is called Love and Marriage. There's a third act coming after this. I reckon you can guess what that's about.
So, it's July 7th, 1904, just after high school commencement. This is the time where most of the young people jump up and get married. As soon as they finish their last examinations in solid geometry and Cicero's orations, they see themselves fit to be married. It's early morning.
Only this time, it's been raining. It's been pouring and thundering. Mrs. Gibbs' garden, Mrs. Webb's here, drenched. All the bean poles and pea vines, drenched. All yesterday over on Main Street, the rain looked like curtains being blown along. Maybe begin again any minute. There, you can hear the 5:45 from Boston. And here comes Mrs. Gibbs and Mrs. Webb down to make breakfast, just as though it were any ordinary day.
I don't have to point out to anyone in the audience that these two ladies before you both cooked 3 meals a day. One for 20 years and the other for 40, and no summer vacation. They both bore 2 children apiece, washed, cleaned the house, and no nervous breakdown.
It's like what one of those Middle West poets said. You've got to love life to have life, and you've got to have life to love life. It's what they call a vicious circle.
Yeah,
And here comes Howie Newsom, delivering the milk.
And there's Cy Crowell delivering the paper like his brother before him.
Morning, Howie.
Morning, Si. Anything in the paper I don't know?
Nothing much, except we're losing about the best baseball pitcher Grover's Corner's ever had, George Gibbs.
Reckon he is.
He could hit and run bases, too.
Yep, mighty fine ball player. Now, come on, Bessie. I reckon I could stop and talk if I wanted to.
I don't get how you could give up such a thing like that just to get married. Would you, Harry?
Oh, I can't say. Never had no talent that way. Morning, Bill. You're up early.
Seeing if there's anything I can do to prevent a flood. The river's been rising all night.
Yeah, well, Cy Crowell here's all worked up about George Gibbs retiring from baseball.
Yes, sir, that's the way it is. Back in '84, we had a player, Si. Not even George Gibbs could touch him. Name of Hank Todd. Went down to Maine and became a parson. Wonderful ball player. So, Howie, how does the weather look today?
Oh, tain't bad. That should clear up.
Good morning, Howie. Oh, do you think it's gonna rain again?
No, I think it rains so heavy it might just clear up for good.
Certainly hope it will.
So how many did you want today?
Well, Howie, I'm gonna have a house full of relations, so it looks to me like I'll need 3 of milk and 2 of cream.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Newsom told me to tell you that we both hope that they'll be very happy together, and we know they will.
Oh, thank you, Howie. Now, tell your wife I hope she makes it to the wedding.
Yes, she'll be there. She'll be there if she can. Morning, Miss Webb.
Good morning, Mr. Newsom. I told you 4 quarts of milk, but I was hoping you could spare me another.
Yes, and a 33.
Yes. Is it supposed to rain again, Mr. Newsom?
Well, I was just telling Miss Gibbs as to how it might clear up for good. Miss Newsom told me to tell you that we both hope they'll be very happy together, and we know they will.
Thank you, and thank Mrs. Newsom, too. We'll hope to see you at the wedding.
Yes, we'll be there. Couldn't miss that. Come on, Bessie.
Well, Ma, looks like you're losing one of your chicks.
Frank Gibbs, don't you say another word. I feel like crying every minute. Here, sit down and drink your coffee.
The groom's up shaving himself, only there ain't an awful lot to shave. Whistling and singing like he's glad to leave us. Every now and then I hear him say, "I do," to the mirror. Only it doesn't sound very convincing to me.
Well, I declare, Frank, I don't know how he'll get along. I've seen to it and arranged that he put warm things on. Frank, they're too young. Well, Emily won't think of such things. Well, he'll catch his death of a cold within the first week.
I was remembering my wedding morning, Julia.
Don't start that, Frank Gibbs.
I was the scaredest young fella in the state of New Hampshire. I thought I'd made a mistake for sure.
Huh?
And when I saw you walking down that aisle, I thought you were the prettiest girl I'd ever seen.
Frank.
Only I had never seen you before. There I was in the Congregational Church marrying a total stranger.
Well, how do you think I felt, Frank? Weddings are perfectly awful things. Farces, that's what they are. Here, I've made you something.
Why, Julia Hersey, French toast.
It ain't hard to make, and I had to do something.
How'd you sleep, Julia?
Well, I heard most of the hours struck off.
It's a shock to think of our son setting out to be a family man. A great gangling thing. There's nothing as terrifying as having a son. The relation between father and son is the darndest, awkwardest.
Well, relationship between mother and daughter isn't a picnic, let me tell you.
Yeah, they'll have their troubles for sure. Everyone's entitled to their own troubles.
Yeah. Well, it ain't natural to be lonesome. We're meant to go through life two by two.
You know one of the things I was scared of when I married you?
Oh, go along with you.
I thought we wouldn't have material for conversation last us more than a few weeks.
Frank!
I thought we would have to go outside and eat our meals in silence. Yet, we've been conversing for 20 years now without any noticeable barren spells.
Well, good weather, bad weather. It ain't very choice, but I always come up with something to say. Hey, have you heard Rebecca screwing around upstairs?
No. It's the only day Julia has, Rebecca, has been managing everybody's business up there. I think she's in her room. I think she's crying.
No, well, this has got to stop. Rebecca, come and get your breakfast.
Good morning, everybody. Only 5 more hours left to live.
George Gibbs, where are you going?
Just stepping across the grass to see my girl.
George, it's raining torrents. You put on your overshoes. You don't leave this house without you're prepared for it.
Oh, Ma, it's just a step.
George, you'll catch your death of a cold and cough all through the service.
George, do as your mother tells you.
From tomorrow on, you can kill yourself in all weathers, but while you're in my house, you will live wisely, thank you. You know, maybe Mrs. Webb isn't used to callers at 6 in the morning. Well, here, you take a cup of coffee first?
Be back in a minute. Good morning, Mother Webb!
Oh, goodness, you frightened me. Now, George, you've been coming out of the wet, but you know I can't ask you in.
Why not?
You know the rules as well as I do, George. The groom can't see his bride not on her wedding day, not until he sees her in church.
Oh, that's just superstition. Good morning, Mr. Webb.
Good morning, George.
Mr. Webb, you don't believe in that superstition, do you?
There's a lot of common sense in some superstitions, George.
Millions have followed it, George, and you don't want to be the first to fall in the face of custom.
How's Emily?
She hasn't waked up yet. I haven't heard a sound out of her.
Emily's asleep?
Yes, of course. We are up till all hours, sewing and packing. You know, I'll tell you what. You sit here and enjoy this cup of coffee with Mr. Webb. I'll go check on Emily and see if she doesn't want to surprise you. And there's some bacon too, but don't be too long about it.
Well, George, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Mr. Webb, what sense could there be in a superstition like that?
Well, you see, on a wedding morning, a girl's head apt to be full of clothes and one thing and another. Don't you think that's probably it?
Yeah, I never thought of that.
A girl's apt to be mighty nervous on her wedding day.
Oh, Mr. Webb, I wish a fella could get married without all that marching up and down.
Oh, every man that has ever lived has felt that way about it, George. It hasn't been any use. It's the women folk who've built up weddings, my boy. For a while now, women have had it all their own. A man looks pretty small at a wedding, George. All those good women standing shoulder to shoulder, making sure the knot's tied in a mighty public way.
But you believe in it, don't you, Mr. Webb?
Oh, yes. Don't you misunderstand me, my boy. Marriage is a wonderful thing. Wonderful thing. And don't you forget that.
No, sir. Mr. Webb, how old were you when you got married?
Well, you see, I've been away to college and I've taken some time to get settled. But Mrs. Webb, she wasn't much older than what Emily is. Age hasn't much to do with it, George. Not compared with much other things.
What were you going to say, Mr. Webb?
Oh, nothing. Was I going to say something? Say, George, the other day, I was thinking of some advice my father gave me when I got married. Charles, he said, Charles, start off early, showing who's boss. The best thing to do is to give an order, even if it doesn't make sense, just so she'll learn to obey. And he said, if anything about your wife irritates you, or a conversation, or anything, just get out of the house. I'll make it clear to her, he said. And oh yes, never let your wife know how much money you have. Never.
Mr. Webb, I don't think I could.
So I took the opposite of my father's advice, and I've been happy ever since. Now let that be a lesson to you, George. Never to ask for advice on personal matters. Say, George, are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
What?
Are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
Oh, well, Uncle Luke's never been interested, but I thought...
A book came in my office the other day on the philo system of raising chickens. I want you to read it.
Oh, yes.
I'm thinking about starting a small way in the backyard. We're going to put an incubator in the cellar. Yeah.
Charles, are you talking about that old incubator again? I thought you two would be talking about something worthwhile.
Well, Myrtle, if you want to give the boys some good advice, I'll go upstairs and leave you alone with them.
Now, George, Emily wants to come down and eat her breakfast. She sends you her love, but she doesn't want to see you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye, George. Say, Myrtle, guess you don't know about that older superstition.
What are you talking about, Charles?
Since the time of the cavemen, no bridegroom should see his father-in-law on the day of the wedding, or near it. Now remember that.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Webb.
Now, I'm afraid we're going to have to interrupt again here. You see, we want to know how all this began, this wedding, this plan to spend a lifetime together. I'm awfully interested in how big things like this begin. You know how it is, you're 21 or 22, you make some decisions, then you're 70, you've been a lawyer for 50 years, and that white-haired lady at your side has eaten over 50,000 meals with you. How do such things begin? George and Emily are now going to show you the conversation they had when they realized that, as the saying goes, they were meant for each other. But before they do it, I want you to try and remember what it was like to have been very young.
And particularly the days when you were first in love. When you were like a person sleepwalking and didn't quite see the street that you were in, and didn't quite hear everything that was said to you.
You're just a little bit crazy. Will you remember that, please?
Now they'll be coming out of high school at 3 o'clock. George has just been elected president of the junior class, and as it's June, he'll be president of the senior class all next year. And Emily's just been elected secretary and treasurer.
I don't have to tell you how important that is.
Here they are coming down Main Street now.
Excuse me. Bye, Wally. Bye, guys. I can't, Louise. I've got to go home. Oh, Ernestine, can you come over tonight and do Latin? Isn't that Cicero the worst thing? Oh, my goodness. I know. Tell your mother you have to. Goodbye. Oh, goodbye, Helen. Goodbye, Fred.
Bye. Oh, hey, boys! Sorry I'm late. Hey, Emily, can I carry your books home for you?
Why, thank you. It isn't that far.
Excuse me just 1 minute, Emily. Say Bob, I'm a little late. Start practice anyway. Give her up some long hours. Come on, boys.
Goodbye, Lizzie!
Goodbye, Lizzie! Emily, I'm awfully glad you were elected too.
Thank you.
Emily, why are you mad at me?
I'm not mad at you.
You've been treating me so funny lately.
Well, now that you asked me, I might as well say it right out, George. Goodbye, Miss Corcoran.
Goodbye, Miss Corcoran. Well, what is it?
I don't like the whole change that's come over you in the past year. I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings, but I've got to tell the truth and shame the devil.
A change? What do you mean?
Well, up to a year ago, I used to like you a lot. And I used to watch you as you did everything. Because we'd been friends for so long. But then you began spending all your time at baseball. And you never stopped to speak to anybody anymore. Not even your own family you didn't. And George, it's a fact. You've gotten awful conceited and stuck up, and all the girls say so. And they may not say it to your face, but it's what they say about you behind your back, and it hurts me to hear them say it, but I've got to agree with them a little. I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings, but I can't be sorry I said it.
No, I'm glad you said it, Emily. I didn't know such a thing was happening to me. I guess it's hard for a fella to not have faults creep into his character.
I always expect a man to be perfect, and I think he should be.
Oh, I don't think it's possible to be perfect, Emily.
Well, my father is, and as far as I can see, your father is, so there's no reason on earth why you shouldn't be too.
Well, actually, I feel it's quite the opposite, that men aren't naturally good, but girls are.
Well, you might as well know right now that I am not perfect. It's not as easy for a girl to be as perfect as a man, because we girls are more nervous. No, I'm sorry I said all that about you. I don't know what made me say it.
Emily.
And I can see it's not the truth at all. And I suddenly feel it isn't important anyway.
Would you like an ice cream soda or something before you go home?
Well, thank you. I would.
Oh, hello, Stu. How are you? Oh, good afternoon, Miss Slocum.
Well, hello, George. Hello, Emily. What would you two like today? Oh, why, Emily Webb, what have you been crying about?
Oh, she just had an awful scare, Mr. Morgan. She almost got run over by the hardware store wagon. Everyone in town says Tom Huckins drives like a crazy man.
Well, here, Emily, you take a drink of water. You look all shook up. Well, what can I get for you two?
I'll have a strawberry frosty. Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
No, have an ice cream soda with me. 2 strawberry ice cream sodas, Mr. Morgan.
2 strawberry ice cream sodas? Yes, sir. You know, this very minute I'm talking to you, there are 125 horses in Grover's Corners. The other day, the state inspector was in here, and they're bringing around these new automobiles. The best thing to do is just stay home. Well, I remember when a dog could go to sleep all day in the middle of Main Street and not a single thing come along to disturb him. Well, anyway, here you two are. Enjoy them. Oh, yes, Miss Ellis, what can I do for you?
They're so expensive.
Oh, no, don't you think of that. We're celebrating our election. And then, do you know what else I'm celebrating?
No.
I'm celebrating that I have a friend who tells me all the things that ought to be told to me.
George, please don't think about that. I don't know why I said it. It's not true.
No, you stick to it, Emily. I'm glad you said it, actually. And I'm going to change so quick. You bet I'm going to change. And Emily, I'd like to ask you a favor.
What?
If I go to agriculture college next year, would you send me a letter every once in a while?
I certainly will. I certainly will. George, it surely seems like being away 3 years, you'd get out of touch with things. Maybe letters from Grover's Corners wouldn't be so interesting after all. Grover's Corners isn't a very important place when you think of all New Hampshire, but I think it's a very nice town.
The day wouldn't come when I wouldn't want to know everything that's happening around here. I know that's true, Emily.
Well, I'll try to make my letters interesting.
Emily, whenever I see a farmer, I always ask him if it's important to go to agriculture school, to be a good farmer.
Why, George!
And some even say it's a waste of time. I mean, you can get all that information out of the pamphlets the government sends out anyway. And Uncle Luke's getting old. Pretty soon he's going to need me to take over his farm. Tomorrow, if I could.
Mike!
And like you say, being gone all that time with other people in other places, gosh, if anything were like that way, I don't want to go away. And new friends aren't any better than old ones. I almost bet they never are. And like you say, you're as good as a friend as I've got. I don't need to go and meet other people in other towns.
But George, maybe it's very important for you to learn about cattle judging and soils. Of course, I don't know.
Emily, I'm going to make up my mind right now. I won't go. I'll tell Pa about it tonight.
Why, George, I don't see why you have to decide right now. It's a whole year away.
Emily, I'm glad you spoke to me like the way that you did about the faults of my character. And what you said was right, but there was one thing wrong with it. How you said that for a whole year I wasn't noticing people, in you for instance, and how you were watching me when I did everything. Well, I was doing the same about you all the time. Why, sure, I always thought of you as one of the chief people I always thought about. Well, I always made sure where you were sitting on the bleachers and who you were with. And for 3 days now, I've been trying to walk home with you, but something's always gotten in the way. Like just the other day, I was sitting at the wall waiting for you, and you walked home with Miss Corcoran.
George, life's awful funny. How could I have known that? Why, I thought...
Emily, I'm going to tell you why I'm not going to agriculture school. I feel that once you found someone you're very fond of, and someone who's fond of you too, and likes you enough to be interested in your character, well, I feel that's just as important as college is, and even more so. That's what I think.
I think it's awfully important too.
Emily?
Yes, George?
If I do improve and make a big change, would you? I mean, could you be?
I am now. I always have been.
Well, I guess this is a pretty important talk we've been having.
Yes.
Well, wait just a minute, and I'll walk you home. Mr. Morgan, I'll have to go home and get the money to pay for this.
George Gibbs, do you mean to tell me?
Yes, but I had my reasons. Here, take my watch and tell you.
You can keep your watch, George. I trust you.
I'll be back in 5 minutes.
I'll trust you 10 years, George, but not a day over. All over your shock, Emily?
Oh, yes, thank you, Mr. Morgan. It was nothing.
I'm ready.
Well, now we're ready to get on with the wedding. There are a lot of things to be said about a wedding. There are a lot of thoughts that go on during a wedding. We can't fit them all into one wedding, naturally, and especially not one in Grover's Corners where we're awfully playing it short.
In this wedding, I play the minister.
That gives me the right to say a few more things about it. You see, for a while now, this play gets pretty serious. The church says marriage is a sacrament. I don't quite know what that means, but I can guess. It's like what Mrs. Gibbs said a few minutes ago. People were made to live 2 by 2. This is a good wedding. But people are so put together that even at a good wedding, there's a lot of confusion deep down in people's minds. And we thought that that ought to be in our play as well. The real hero of this scene isn't on the stage, and you know who that is. It's like what one of those European fellas said. Every human child is nature's attempt at creating a perfect human being. Well, we've seen nature pushing and contriving for some time now. And we all know how she's interested in quantity, but I reckon she's interested in quality as well. That's why I'm in the ministry. And don't forget all the other witnesses to this wedding. The ancestors. Millions of them. Most of them set out to live 2 by 2 themselves. Well, that's all my sermon. Wasn't very long anyways.
Oh, I don't know why on earth I should be crying. I suppose there's no reason for me to be crying. It came over me at breakfast this morning. There was Emily sitting there eating her breakfast, just like she has done for 17 years, and now she's off to eat it at someone else's house. And then Emily, she said, "I can't eat one more mouthful." She put her head down, and she started to cry. Oh, I suppose that's it. It's downright cruel how we send our daughters into marriage this way. I hope her girlfriends have told her a thing or two about it. It's cruel, I know, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything. The whole world's wrong, and that's what's the matter. Here they come.
Look at him, boys. Look, he looks scared. That's enough, Dad. That's enough. We used to have a lot of that in the old days. Rome and later. We're more civilized now, at least so they say.
George, will you come here a minute? Why, you're marrying the best young fellow in the world. George is a fine fellow.
But Papa!
George, I'm giving my daughter away. Do you think you can take care of her?
Mr. Webb, I want to try. Emily, I'll try my best. I love you, Emily. I need you.
Well, then if you love me, then help me. All I want is for someone to love me.
I want to try.
And I mean forever, do you hear? Forever and ever.
Come, they're waiting for us. Now you know it'll be all right. Come, quick.
you, George, take this woman, Emily, to be your wedded wife.
Perfectly lovely wedding. Loveliest wedding I ever saw. Oh, I do love a good wedding, don't you? Doesn't she make a lovely bride? Oh.
I do. And you, Emily, take this man, George, to be your wedded husband.
Oh, don't know when I've seen such a lovely wedding, but I always cry. Don't know why it is, but I always cry. I guess I just like to see young people happy, don't you? Oh, I think it's lovely. Oh.
I've seen over 200 couples married in my day. Do I believe in it? I don't know. The cottage, the go-kart, the Sunday drives in the Ford, the first rheumatism, the grandchildren, the second rheumatism, the deathbed, the reading of the will.
Once in 1,000 times is interesting. Well, let's have Mendelssohn's Wedding March.
Nice wedding. I'm sure they'll be happy. I always say happiness, that's the great thing. The important thing is to be happy.
That's the second act, folks. 10-minute intermission. This time, 9 years have gone by, friends. Summer, 1913. Gradual changes in Grover's Corners. Horses are getting rarer, farmers come into town in Fords. Everybody locks their house doors at night. No burglars yet, but everybody's heard about them. You'd be surprised, though. On the whole, things haven't changed much around here. This is certainly an important part of Grover's Corners.
It's on a hilltop, a windy hilltop. Lots of sky and clouds, often lots of sun and moon and stars. You come up here on a fine afternoon and you can see range on range of hills. Awful blue they are. Over there by Lake Sunapee and Lake Winnipesaukee. And way up, if you got a glass, you can see the White Mountains and Mount Washington, where Conway and North Conway is. And, of course, our favorite mountain, Mount Monadnock. And the towns around it. Jaffrey and East Jaffrey, Peterborough and Dublin. And just a little ways down is Grover's Corners. Yes, an awful beautiful spot up here. Mountain laurel and lilacs. I often wonder why people go to get buried in Woodlawn and Brooklyn when they might pass the same time right up here in New Hampshire.
Over here are the old stones, 1670 to 1680. Strong-minded people who come a long way to be independent. Somewhere people walk along the rows laughing at the funny words on the tombstones. They don't do any harm. And genealogists coming from Boston get paid by city folk to look up their ancestors. They want to make sure they're daughters of the American Revolution and of the Mayflower. Well, I guess that don't do any harm either. Wherever you come near the human race, there are layers and layers of nonsense. Up here are the Civil War veterans, iron flags on their graves. New Hampshire boys had a notion that the Union ought to be kept together, though they'd only seen 50 miles of it themselves. All they knew was the name, friends, the United States of America.
The United States of America.
And then they went and died about it.
And over here's the new part of the cemetery. Here's your friend, Miss Gibbs. And, let's see, Mr. Stimson, the organist at the Congregational Church. Oh, and Miss Soames, who loved the wedding so. You remember? And a lot of others. Oh, and I almost forgot Editor Webb's boy, Wallace. whose appendix burst while he was on a camping trip to Crawford Notch. Yes, an awful lot of sorrow has just sort of quieted down up here.
People just wild with grief have brought their relatives up to this hill.
We all know how it is.
And then time.
And sunny days.
And rainy days.
And snow.
We're all happy they're in a beautiful place and that we're coming up here when our time's done. Now, there are some things we all know, but we don't take them out and look at them very often. We all know that something is eternal. And it ain't houses, and it ain't names, and it ain't earth, and it ain't even the stars. We all know in our bones that something is eternal. And that something has to do with human beings. All the greatest people ever lived have been telling us that for 5,000 years. And yet you'd be surprised how many people are always losing hold of it. There's something deep down that's eternal about every human being. You know as well as I do that the dead don't stay interested in us living people for very long. Gradually, they lose hold of the earth. And the ambitions they have.
And the pleasures they had.
And the things they suffered.
And the people they loved. They get weaned away from the earth. That's the way I put it. Weaned away. They stay here while that earth part of them burns away, burns out. And they slowly grow indifferent to what's happening in Grover's Corners.
They're waiting. They're waiting for something that they feel is coming. Something important and great.
Aren't they waiting for the eternal part in them to come out clear?
Some of the things they say maybe will hurt your feelings, but that's the way it goes. Mother and daughter.
Husband and wife.
Enemy and enemy.
Money and miser. All those terribly important things just kind of grow pale around here.
And what's left when memory's gone? And your identity.
There are some living people, Joe Stoddard, our undertaker, supervising a newly made grave, and a Grover's Corners boy, leaving town to move out west. Good afternoon, Joe. Joe? Joe Stoddard.
Good afternoon, good afternoon. Let me see now, do I know you?
I'm Sam Craig.
Oh, gracious sakes alive. Of all people, I should have known you'd be back for the funeral. Been away a long time, Sam.
Yes, I've been away over 12 years now, Joe. I'm in business out in Buffalo. But I was out east when I heard the news of my cousin's passing, so I thought I'd combine things a little and come and see the old home. You look well.
Yes, I can't complain. Very sad hard journey today, Samuel.
Yes.
Yes, I always say I hate to supervise when a young person is taken. They'll be here in a few minutes now. I had to come here early today. My son was supervising at the home.
Old Farmer McCarty. I used to do chores for him after school. He had the lumbago.
Yes, we brought Farmer Carty here a number of years ago now.
Why, it's my Aunt Julia. I'd forgotten that she... Oh, of course. Of course.
Yes, Doc Gibbs lost his wife 2 or 3 years ago now, about this time. Today's another pretty bad blow for him, too.
That's my sister Carrie's boy, Sam Craig.
I'm always uncomfortable when they're around.
Simon.
Joe, do they choose their own verses much?
No, not usual. Most of the bereaved pick a verse.
Well, it doesn't sound like my Aunt Julia. Can't be too many of those Hersey sisters left now. Let's see. I wanted to go and look for my mother and my father's...
Over there with the Craigs, Avenue F.
He was the organist at church, wasn't he? Used to drink a lot, we would say.
Nobody was supposed to know about it. He'd seen a peck of trouble. Took his own life, you know?
Oh, did he?
Hung himself in the attic. They tried to hush it up, but of course it got around. See, he chose his own epitaph. See it there, it ain't much of a verse.
Why, it's just some musical notes. What is it?
Oh, I wouldn't know. It was wrote up at the boss's papers at the time.
Joe, how did she die?
Who?
My cousin.
Didn't you know? She had some trouble bringing a baby into the world. 'Twas her second, though. She's got a little boy about 4 years old.
And the grave's gonna be over there.
Yes, there ain't much more room here among the Gibbses, so we're opening up a whole new Gibbs section over there among Avenue B. Oh, if you'll excuse me now, I hear they're coming.
Who is it, Julia?
My daughter-in-law, Emily Webb.
Oh, I declare, the road up here must have been awful muddy. What did she die of, Julia?
In childbirth.
Childbirth? I'd forgotten all about that. My, wasn't life just awful and wonderful?
Wonderful, wasn't it?
Simon, now remember.
Oh, I remember Emily's wedding. Wasn't it a lovely wedding? And I remember her reading the class poem at graduation exercises. Emily was one of the brightest girls ever to graduate high school. I remember Principal Wilkins say so time after time. I called on them at their new farm just before I died. Perfectly beautiful farm.
It's on the same road we lived on.
Yep, right smart farm.
And it never sinks below a certain mark they have there. It's fine. It won't be the same to George without me, but it's a lovely farm. Live people don't understand, do they?
No, dear. Not very much.
They're sort of shut up in little boxes, aren't they? I feel as though I knew them last 1,000 years ago. My boy is spending the day at Mrs. Carter's. Oh, Mr. Carter! My little boy is spending the day at your house.
Is he?
Yes, he loves it there. Mother Gibbs, we have a 4-2. Never gives us any trouble. I don't drive, though. Mother Gibbs, when does this feeling go away of being one of them? How long does...
Dear, just wait and be patient.
I know. Look! They're finished! They're going! Look, Father Gibbs is bringing some of my flowers to you. He looks just like George, doesn't he? Mother Gibbs, I never realized before how troubled and how in the dark live persons are. Look at him. I loved him so. From morning till night. That's all they are. Troubled.
A little cooler, but
Yes, those northeast winds always do the same thing, don't they?
But Mother Gibbs, one can go back. One can go back there into living. I feel it. I know it. Why, just for a moment I was thinking about about the farm, and then I was there, and my baby was on my lap as plain as day.
Well, yes, of course you can.
I can go back and live all those days over again. Why not?
All I can say is, Emily, don't.
But it's true, isn't it? I can go and live back there again.
Yes. Some have tried, but they soon come back here.
Don't do it, Emily. Emily, don't. It's not what you think it'd be.
But I won't live over a sad day. I'll choose a happy one. I'll choose the day I first knew I loved George. Why should that be painful?
You not only live it, but you watch yourself living it.
Yes.
And as you watch it, you see the thing that they, down there, never know. You see the future. You know what's going to happen afterwards.
But is that painful? Why?
That isn't the only reason why you shouldn't do it, Emily. When you've been here longer, you'll see that our life here is to forget all that and think only of what's ahead and be ready for what's ahead. When you've been here longer, you'll understand.
But Mother Gibbs, how could I ever forget that life? It's all I knew. It's all I had!
Oh, Emily, it isn't wise. Really, it isn't.
But it's a thing I must know for myself. I'll choose a happy day anyway.
No. At least choose an unimportant day. Choose the least important day in your life that will be important enough.
And it can't be since I was married, or since the baby was born. I can choose a birthday at least, can't I? Oh, I choose my 12th birthday.
All right. February 11th, 1899. A Tuesday. Do you want any special time of the day?
Oh, I want the whole day.
We'll begin at dawn. You remember it had just been snowing several nights before, and had just begun to stop. They began clearing the roads, and the sun's coming up.
Why, there's Main Street, and there's Mr. Morgan's drugstore before he changed it, and there's the livery stable.
Yes, it's 1899. This is 14 years ago.
Oh, this is the town I knew as a little girl. Look, there's the old white fence that used to be around our house. Oh, I've forgotten that. Oh, I love it so. Are they inside?
Yes. Your mother will be coming down any minute to make breakfast.
Will she?
And you remember, your father had been away for several days. He came back in the early morning train.
No.
He went to his college to make a speech at Western New York in Clinton.
Look, there's Howie Newsome, and there's our policeman. But he's dead. He died.
Come on, Bessie. Bessie, what's the matter with you? Morning, Bill. You're up early.
Well, I was rescuing a party down near Polish Town there. Darn near froze to death. Got drunk and lay out in the snowdrifts. He thought he was in bed when I shook him.
Why, there's Joe Crowell.
Morning, Mr. Warren. Morning, Howie.
Wally, Emily, time to get up. Oh, Mama, I'm here. Oh, how young Mama looks. I never knew that Mama was ever that young.
You can come and dress by the kitchen fire if you like, but hurry. Good morning, Mr. Newsome. Ooh, it's cold.
In below down by my barn, Miss Webb.
Think of it. Keep yourself wrapped up.
Mama, I can't find my blue hair ribbon anywhere.
Just open your eyes, dear. I laid it out for you on the dresser yesterday. If it were a snake, it would bite you.
Yes, yes.
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Mr. Webb. You're up early?
Yes, just been back to my old college in New York State. Been any trouble here?
Well, I was called up this morning to rescue a Polish fella. Darn near froze to death he was.
You must get in the paper.
Twa'n't much.
Papa.
Good morning, Mother.
Good morning, Charles. How did it go?
Fine, I guess. I told them a few things. Everything all right here?
Yeah, I can't think of anything that's happened. Howie Newsome says it's 10 below by his barn.
Ooh, colder than at Hamilton College. Students' ears have fallen off. They ain't Christian. Paper have any mistakes in it?
None that I've noticed. The coffee's ready when you like it. And don't forget, it's Emily's birthday. Did you remember to get her something?
Oh, yes, I got something right here. Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
Oh, don't bother her now, dear. You know she's slow enough as it is.
Wally, Emily, time to get up!
I can't bear it. They're so young and beautiful. Oh, why did they ever have to get so old? Oh, Mama, I'm here. I'm all grown up. I love you all, everything. I can't look at everything hard enough. Good morning, Mama.
Good morning. Happy birthday and many happy returns. There's some presents for you waiting at the table.
Oh, Mama, you shouldn't have. I can't. I can't.
But birthday or no birthday, I want you to eat your breakfast good and slow. I want you to grow up and be a good, strong girl. That in the blue paper is from your Aunt Carrie, and I bet you can guess who brought you the postcard album. I found it on the porch. George Gibbs must have come over pretty early. It's darn right nice of him.
George, I'd forgotten that.
Chew your bacon good and slow. It'll help you keep you warm on a cold day.
Oh, Mama, just look at me 1 minute as though you really saw me. 14 years have gone by. I'm dead. You're a grandmother, Mama. I married George Gibbs, Mama. Wally is dead too, Mama. His appendix burst on a camping trip to North Conway. We felt just terrible about it. Don't you remember? But just for a moment now we're together. Mama, just for a moment we're happy. Let's look at one another.
That in the yellow paper is something from your grandmother. You're old enough now, and I thought you might like it.
And this is from you. Why, it's lovely. It's just what I wanted. It's beautiful.
Well, I hope you liked it. I hunted all over for it. Your Aunt Carrie couldn't find one in Concord, so I had to send all the way to Boston. And Wally made you something from manual training class, so make a big fuss about it. Your father got you something too, but I'm not sure what it is. Shh, here he comes.
Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
I can't go on! It goes so fast. We don't have time to look at one another. I never realized. So all of that was going on, and we never noticed. Take me back, up the hill, to my grave. But first, wait. One more look. Goodbye. Goodbye, world. Goodbye, Grover's Corners. Mama and Papa. Goodbye to clocks ticking and Mama's sunflowers and my butternut tree and food and coffee and new iron dresses and hot baths and sleeping and waking up. Oh, Earth, you're too wonderful for anybody to realize you. Do human beings ever realize life while they live it? Every minute?
No.
The saints and poets, maybe. They do some.
I'm ready to go back. Were you happy? No. I should have listened to you. That's all human beings are, just blind people.
Look, it's clear enough. The stars are coming out.
Oh, Mr. Stimson, I should have listened to them.
Yes. That's what it was to be alive. To move about in a cloud of ignorance. To spend and waste time as though you had 1,000,000 years. To be always at the mercy of one self-centered passion or another. Yes, that was life. Ignorance and blindness.
Simon Stimson, that's not the whole truth, and you know it. Emily, Look at that star. I forgot its name.
My boy Joel was a sailor. He knew them all. He used to sit out on the porch evenings and used to tell them all by name. Yes, sir. Wonderful.
A star's mighty good company.
Yes. Yes, 'tis.
Here's one of them coming.
That's funny.
Take no time to warm up to be here.
Mother Gibbs, it's George. Shh, dear. Just rest yourself. It's George.
My boy Joel, who knew all the stars, used to say it took millions of years for that speck of light to get all the way down to Earth. Not a body could believe it. That's what it takes. Millions of years.
Goodness, ain't no way to behave. He ought to be home. Mother Gibbs? Yes, dear? They don't understand, do they? No, dear. They don't understand.
Most everybody's asleep in Grover's Corners.
There are a few lights on. Shorty Hawkins down at the depot has just watched the Albany train go by. And at the livery station, they're setting up late and talking.
Yes, it's clearing up. There are the stars, doing their old crisscross journeys in the sky. Scholars haven't settled the matter yet, but they seem to think that there are no living beings up there. Just chalk or fire. Only this one's straining away all the time to make something of itself.
The strain's so bad that every 16 hours somebody lies down and takes a rest. $11 in Grover's Corners.
You get a good rest, too.
Good night.
Thank you.